The U.S. executive order in sharp focus. We see tweets flying back and forth, X posts, if you want. Its topical starts right now. Very good evening to South Africa, those watching around the world. My name is Blaine Herman, and this is It's Topical. Our digital audience with us tonight, they'll pop up shortly. There we go. Among them, our guests. Looking forward to their questions for our guests in a short while. We are witnessing the rise of nationalism and protectionism, the pursuit of narrow interests, and the decline of common cause. This is the world that we, as a developing economy, must now navigate. But we are not daunted. We will not be deterred. We are a resilient people. We will not be bullied. Not my words, of course. It's an excerpt from President Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address. It was said prior to an executive order signed by America's President Donald Trump, stating that the U.S. shall not provide aid or assistance to South Africa, and I quote, "The United States shall promote the resettlement of Afrikaner refugees escaping government-sponsored race-based discrimination, including racially discriminatory property confiscation." Now, the statement also says South Africa has taken an aggressive position towards the United States and its allies, including accusing Israel, not Hamas, of genocide in the International Court of Justice and reinvigorating its relations with Iran to develop commercial, military and nuclear arrangements. Now, the Ministry of International Relations says the foundational premise of this order lacks factual accuracy and fails to recognize South Africa's profound and painful history of colonialism and apartheid. Now, how are the sentiments expressed by the President Ramaphosa, that is, during the State of the Nation address, being seen in the context of this latest U.S. executive order targeting South Africa? Do you feel that South Africa's insistence on its non-aligned stance engenders more and more skepticism from countries like the United States? BRICS Plus, South Africa's enthusiasm to work with countries like Russia, China, and Iran. How's that viewed? And to what extent is their belief in this country that a diminished U.S. position equals a more just world? It brings us to the question of the week, and we're asking you. U.S. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order targeting South Africa. What's your thoughts? What's your reaction? Simple question. Bound to get some complicated answers, right? At SABC News_TV. Let's walk talk. Let's get you some context as always. What do you make of South Africa's foreign policy? Is it coherent enough? Does it encompass components such as economics, security, political components? Let us know your thoughts at SABC News_TV. Perspective on this matter coming up. But now, time for your roundup. Right, the first president of independent Namibia, Sam Nujoma, has died at the age of 95 in the capital, Windhoek. Nujoma led the long fight for independence from South Africa in 1990 after helping found Namibia's liberation movement known as Southwest People's Organization, or SWAPO, in the 1960s. Now, after independence, he became president in 1990 and led the country until 2005. In a statement, President Ramaphosa said Nujoma is inseparable from South Africa's history of struggle and liberation. Messages of condolences continue to pour in.
To the people of Namibia, President Nujoma will forever be remembered as the father of the nation, a fearless freedom fighter, and a unifying force in Namibia's struggle for freedom. In his honor, we call on Namibia, under the leadership of SWAPO, to continue the fight for the total liberation of Namibia and the African continent.
From working as a railway cleaner while attending night school to organizing black workers against forced removals, he embodied the spirit of defiance that would define his lifelong struggle for justice.
Nujoma is equally one of our own. His passing does not mean the end of an era. It rather joins different phases of struggle into a bond that must never be betrayed.
Our thoughts are with the Namibian people as they experience this second loss of a former president and national figure in little over a year.
I wish his family and the people of Namibia much strength during this time. May his soul rest in peace.
Also, another story that's dominating the headlines, the remains of 14 South African soldiers who died last month in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo are expected in the country this week. The bodies were evacuated to Uganda on Saturday. Now, the remains of the fallen soldiers were transported overland for 2 days, arriving in Uganda on Saturday afternoon. On arrival, the bodies were taken to the Mulago National Referral Hospital for autopsies. Once the procedures is completed later today or Monday, the remains will then be dispatched to their home countries. Now, of the 18 soldiers, 14 are of the South African National Defence Force, while the other 4 included 2 each from Malawi and Tanzania. Right, to our main topic of the day, let's get you some context. And as always, we turn to the magic wall, what we know and why it matters. My guest tonight, SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena, joins me. Sophie, good to have you on the program. We must start off, though, with some news just breaking a little while earlier on. Elon Musk responding to a tweet from one Mario, saying immediate sanctions for Malema and declaration of him as an international criminal. How serious should we be taking such posts on X?
Well, I think you are creating a security problem for such a person, Julius Malema, the leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters. We know that there are mad people out there. What happened to Chris Hani, and that hatred that's there globally. We've seen the rise of the right-wing groups, and you can't take these statements light in terms of perhaps making the radical right-wing to be emboldened. You cannot take these statements lightly.
Right.
And of course, Elon Musk would say Malema similarly is making statements that can lead to serious results in terms of those who listen to him if they are misinterpreted.
Yeah.
And therefore, you have to find a balance. But I think that statement itself, Malema has responded.
Right.
And I think you look at the social media is red with the response.
Right.
People on the continent rallying behind Julius Malema, even in the country, united now in support of Malema, while the small constituency or group of people are also supporting Elon Musk. And therefore, the polarization of the world, now it's taking root.
Right.
And unfortunately, these are 2 South Africans, even though Elon Musk is now an American.
I think we have control the response from the EFF regarding this. Let's play it for the viewers.
Calling for the ceasing of operations of all of Elon Musk-owned companies, inclusive of X, if necessary, to stop operating in South Africa. Let's establish our own social media platforms, because it seems as if the relations with the United States of America are going to be determined by bullying and submission, and we should not allow ourselves to be subjected to that.
Elon Musk in the geopolitical stage, to what extent does he have this influence over Donald Trump? And to what extent is Donald Trump's worldview that of Elon Musk's?
Donald Trump's worldview, it's Elon Musk's worldview. We know that Donald Trump is more to the right. The same with Elon Musk. We've seen both of them supporting the right-wing organizations in different countries, particularly Elon Musk. That is why the president of France had to issue a statement. He did the same with Germany, that is going to elections. The same with the United Kingdom, going to elections. All these individuals that he is supporting in those countries and organizations are more to the right. And therefore, we know that is Donald Trump's view or worldview. And therefore, you have people who share the same view or political view. at a global level, including in the United States of America. You can't blame Donald Trump alone.
Yeah.
You can't blame Elon Musk. They are the same. They believe in these more right-leaning policies and also ideology.
In hindsight, was it a mistake for President Ramaphosa to meet Elon Musk?
I think the president didn't anticipate how Elon Musk is an opportunist, how he likes to be around power and aura, because he sees himself as powerful because he's got money. And therefore didn't realize that he is going to use that against him for his own interest. And that's what's happening.
Right.
He likes to be around powerful people, and he likes to show that he can control powerful people because he's got money.
Right. These are two big personalities, that of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. I wonder in the near future if there's going to be a clash of so-called personalities over policy, etc. We'll wait and see. What about this? America won't attend the G20 summit. How much of a blow is that for the G20 summit here in South Africa?
I think for now, the foreign affairs ministers that's going to take place in South Africa in a week's time, it's not a huge blow because you have other countries that are coming. And therefore, America staying away doesn't mean there is not going to be a G20 meeting. Yes, of course, it's not good because the incoming president of the G20 is President Donald Trump. You want that smooth transition and synergy between the outgoing, the current, and the incoming. We did have that with the outgoing, that was India, the incoming, that was South Africa, and the current then, it was Brazil.
Right.
So now you have this problem now with the United States of America. Therefore, I think for synergy, and to ensure that the communique and what you are going to agree on later this year at the summit, there's a synergy. It's likely not going to happen because there will be people who would agree with Trump in those countries where they believe Trump is correct and they are members of the G20.
What's the problem here? What's the sticky point? What's the gripe that America has with South Africa currently, or the Trump administration has with South Africa?
People went to the United States of America during Donald Trump's first term. They mobilized and lobbied his administration to take action and speak out against South Africa for what they claim are racist policies and laws. Now, at that time, while he was trying to act, then it was an end of a term because it's only 4 years. He's back. He now has Elon Musk supporting those views. And those people who went to United States of America, they can deny as much as they want. But the reality is, remember, Americans read and see and hear what's being said. And many people don't even verify information. And now here we are. And unfortunately, with Elon Musk, they even believe, because here is someone who was born in South Africa, who's got friends in South Africa, who still has connection with the country, supporting those assertions. And therefore, this is where we are now.
Right.
And you are dealing with President Donald Trump. You know, President Donald Trump is a transactional leader. He doesn't really take time to apply his mind, do research. He acts, and he acts now.
Right. So I wonder if that is the case, that he's a transactional, his approach is transactional, how should Pretoria now react in a strategic way? Because we have things on the line here. AGOA membership is one. Is that in jeopardy now?
The AGOA is the brainchild of the Republicans during President Bush and also later with President Mbeki. And therefore, AGOA is the brainchild of those countries to strengthen it. Now, if they pull it, including PEPFAR, you are going to have a problem. based on the American companies that are benefiting from AGOA.
Right.
Not only American companies, but also companies outside America who have established assembled areas like your motor industry, who are using South Africa for their exports to the United States of America.
Right.
So it is not only South Africa that is going to suffer, including countries on the continent. And therefore, maybe the engagement and proper analysis will lead to synergy prevailing. Right. But for now, the way President Trump is behaving, there's that possibility. On the 8th, he has already indicated that he's going to cut aid.
Right.
And the other important issue to note is that with President Trump being in power, you need someone to step forward.
Right.
To take space of the United States of America as the leader of the world.
Who was that?
During President Trump's first term, the Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, did step forward. Right now, I don't know whether there's a leader who can step forward and try and pull the world together.
And look, it doesn't make it any easier with regards to pulling the world together when Donald Trump administration is smacking countries with tariffs. Canada and Mexico, I understand there's a pause for now, but 30-day pause. But this has the potential of sending economic shockwaves across not only North America, but across the world.
Yes, indeed. Across the world, we saw when he signed those executive orders, the whole world, the markets were affected, including South Africa. And we are waiting to see what's going to happen on Monday, whether the rand, how is it going to react. But you expect those shock waves. But we know that many leaders in the business industry, but also the central bank governors and those who mentor globally, who control the economy of the world, have factored in Donald Trump as the leader of the United States of America. So you'll see those movements, but behind the scenes, it was expected that this is what's going to happen. It was not going to be business as usual.
Appreciate your context as always. Sophie Mokoena is SABC News International Editor. We're going to flesh this out in a short while. Let's get the discussions on the road. Join me a number of guests that we invited. Crispin Peary, Department of International Relations and Cooperation, is with us. We also have, good day, hello. How are you doing, Patrick? Patrick Kadima, Wits School of Governance International Law Specialist. Kali Kriel is the CEO of AfriForum. We also have Yvette Raphael from the Advocacy for Prevention of HIV and AIDS, and Christopher Givers, lecturer International Law, Jurisprudence, Legal Theory, and Foundation of Law in the School of Law, UKZN. Thank you so much. We also have our digital audience as well. As per normal, if you have any questions for our guests, please raise your virtual hand and I'll do my very best to get you on the program. Kali Kriel, maybe I can start with you. You had a press conference yesterday stating AfriForum's stance on the matter with regards to this U.S. executive order. But to what extent does AfriForum have the U.S. President Donald Trump's ear? How often are you meeting with him or his administration?
Yes, I must say it's ludicrous if people think that we speak to the American president, we tell him anything and he just believes it. In fact, with regards to this Expropriation Act from AfriForum side, we have not engaged the American government at all. Why these allegations are being made, and that's unfortunately an old political strategy. If you have somebody like the president of South Africa, you have some senior ANC leaders that have behaved irresponsibly, they try to evade the responsibility for the negative effects of their actions. And the easiest way is now to go and get some scapegoat. Also with regard to Elon Musk, we can speculate on what his role is. We cannot change that. Let's rather say, what is our role in South Africa? What happened? The president signed the Expropriation Act that has the phrase in section 12.3, expropriation with no compensation. The Deputy President Moshatile said that means expropriation without compensation. We wrote to the President last year in April urging him to refer it back to Parliament because we said this is going to have very negative implications internationally. The President simply ignored us. And now the hypocrisy we're seeing, now we are blamed for something the President done, despite the fact that he was warned. He signed the Bella Act. He has driven a country in a direction where we moved away from a neutrality. We need to be neutral internationally. China is our biggest trade partner. The US is second. And we must not get involved in international conflicts.
I just want to take a few steps back. You said you wrote to the President, President Ramaphosa, that is. You didn't get any response. Following that, did you, as AfriForum, then start lobbying groups within the United States to take up your cause?
No, we have our campaign, and people can go and look at our campaigns, which of course is public. We send out statements. It does not target specific countries, but people now saying that those are lies. If people think we lie, go and bring me any statement that is not true.
So you're saying that you are not lobbying anyone in the United States to take up AfriForum's cause with regards to land?
No, we have had meetings with regard to various groupings in the U.S.
With Elon Musk in particular?
But the irony, no, definitely not. The irony is our meetings that we've had over the last 2 years was focusing on trying to save the AGOA agreement. Our colleagues at the Solidarity Movement has been to the U.S. numerous times after the Democrats and Republicans, a number of them brought into place that act that wants to review linked ties with South Africa. Our view was, and we had to make presentations there to say, don't kick out South Africa out of AGOA, because it will harm the normal people in the country. And the politicians that are disrespecting property rights, they will sit comfortably. And now the President has simply made it impossible for us. And now he's turning around and saying, this is AfriForum. We try to be loyal to the country. We still are to the citizens. The disloyalty we are seeing is that say we don't have to respect property rights, even though we've seen what the consequences of that is in Zimbabwe. That is disloyalty.
Let me bring in Crispin Peary. From what you're hearing from Khalid Creel, do you still maintain that AfriForum has crossed the line here?
I think we've all seen the interview with Tucker Carlson on Fox News. We've all seen them with John Bolton. In fact, immediately after the Tucker Carlson interview on Fox News, this was in 2018, a couple of days, if not a day after that, President Trump, then tweeted about land confiscation in South Africa. So there's a direct link between their presence in the US, the type of people they've been meeting, and the historical actions, actually, of President Trump. This is not new. We saw President Trump saying that there would be an investigation done by Secretary Pompeo at the time. Nothing has come from that investigation. But now this is where we are. So Kali can really do some nice tap dancing there, but there's evidence of them being in the US, engaging in a particular way.
Go on, Kali.
Can I ask, what is the evidence? What did we say? When did we say it? To whom we said it? We visited the US, but you're now making these sweeping statements. Where did we lie? Who said it on our side? To whom did we say it? I want you to give me those sources. But you can't. You can just say we were in the US, and now you want to take away the responsibility of this government that left our people in the lurch, and you're just making sweeping statements. Give me the statement. When was it said to whom?
The public record is there, Kali. But in fact, let's go to the Expropriation Act, which is a source of concern for you. And I think many times you actually even go as far as saying...
Kali, just 1 second. Let him respond. He's responding, Kali. Let Crispin respond.
What public record?
It's there. I mean, we don't have to debate the nitty he said, she said.
You have evidence as government.
You simply have to go on the internet,
That's all I'm asking.
watch the Tucker Carlson interview, and then follow the
Yes.
sequence of events that emanated from that. That's just one example.
Let's just deal with that. So
What did we
the
say
Tucker
in the
Carlson
Tucker
interview, the Tucker Carlson interview is being cited, Kali.
Yeah, what did Aris Root say? Nothing of that we are accused. Tucker Carlson said these things. So we are hearing now, I've asked Crispin, give me the exact words that was said, give me the source, give me the date. It's not possible because you're driving this propaganda to try and avert the president from taking responsibility.
So we are being dealt with cards that come with an executive order now for a stopping of aid to South Africa. It goes on to say for the resettlement of Afrikaner refugees, as the executive order puts it. How is Pretoria reacting to this?
Well, firstly, it's to call it out as misinformation, and even Kali agrees that it's misinformation. Firstly, the idea that there is land confiscations in South Africa targeting specifically even Afrikaners at that, it's preposterous. I think Agri-Business has also come out, Agri-SA has also come out to say there is no such thing happening. What is required now is, of course, for us to have these diplomatic discussions through the diplomatic channels with the US, and we don't think there's any merit in having this in the public domain, through the social media platforms, as we are being engaged through the US by.
Right.
So we believe that we will be able to have these discussions quite full-frontally in front of each other through the diplomatic channels. But also, again, it's important to really correct the misunderstandings that are still being perpetuated by some people inadvertently or advertently, for example, claiming that the Expropriation Act is solely about land reform. It's not about land reform. It's a standard expropriation act which deals with a number of issues, which would enable the state, first and foremost, to deal with property that is below a market value, determined by a certain set of principles. So the idea that we're going to wake up one day and some people cite a Zimbabwe example, there'll be people outside your house saying you are now being evicted. In South Africa is literally impossible. There are many procedures that this same act puts in place. Very clear how you go about, how you even reach the conclusion that land should be priced below the market value, or property should be priced at market value, is subject to an evaluation. So it's not a willy-nilly, it's not arbitrary at all.
Do you think, though, that Pretoria could have communicated better with the United States, be it via formal diplomatic channels or even back channels, to put across the facts with regards to the Expropriation Act? Did you miss an opportunity?
No, South Africa has been communicating quite firmly with the United States. You would have seen a number of delegations, one led by Minister Lamula quite recently at the US Capitol. President Ramaphosa himself has met with a number of interlocutors during the UN. So we have been engaging. I think this transition in the administration has seen the interlocutors change, but the message remains one. South Africa is a constitutional democracy. And that means, in fact, Kali, that in Section 25 of the Act, the property rights are enshrined. How we then deal with that is further defined in Section 25 and other legislation as well. I just want to make this one point, Blaine, and a lot of people make this point. They say something like, oh, but South Africa is, in the latest numbers, 140 race laws. This is post-democratic South Africa. On land alone, the apartheid regime had 17,000 laws. And you can look at this, I think, is a quote by Professor W.J. du Plessis, I think, from the University of Potchefstroom, who cites this fact. So this tells you that the land question on its own was subject to 17,000 laws. How do we undo the effects of that? Of course, you will then have to have legislation. That speaks to directly the harm that was caused by the apartheid regime.
This executive order, Patrick, has created a lot of debate. You heard sentiments. Tell America to shove it. We don't need them. Is there a danger in that approach?
I don't think there's a danger in that approach. I mean, look, people have, or the citizens of the country have feelings, and sentiments to what transpired, led by other lobby groups such as AfriForum and so on and so forth, But what I think is the right procedure is, the diplomatic discussions that need to continue. And I don't think that at all it was Pretoria's fault, or the lack of diplomatic communication thereof, from Pretoria. I mean, we see the current American administration, the Trump administration, how it is acting. There's lack of information or misinformation. We're in that age, where you find his associates on Twitter or X, as they call it, stating, false statements and so on and so forth. So I think it's a response, I think, from, if I may say, Africans who are really tired, of being probably seen as second-class citizens in the global sphere, and hence their response of saying, they can take the aid and so on and so forth. But I'll be very cautious because, certain, for example, aid that the United States of America gives, not only to South Africa but to the continent of Africa, aids countries to achieve certain goals such as PEPFAR and
Right. The PEPFAR, the government has clarified with regards to the funding. It's about 17% with regards to the PEPFAR aid. The rest comes from South Africa, and there's no other U.S. funding, correct, Crispin?
Yes.
Right. Christopher Gibbons, sorry, apologies, I got your title wrong, from Wits Law. South Africa is one of the most industrialized, developed economies on the African continent. So it would make sense for the U.S. to engage with South Africa, right? It's not all one-sided here.
No, of course. I think, one has to take a couple of steps back to say that this action is not just based on a faulty premise about the Expropriation Act, but arguably it's a violation of international law, that there's an obligation under international law to engage in diplomatic relations. But there are limits on that. And one of the limits is the principle of non-interference, which says that a state can't interfere within the sovereignty of another state, both its internal policy and its foreign policy. And so we're not just dealing with an illogical process, we're dealing with an unlawful process as well. And I think we have to bear that in mind. And yes, to answer your immediate question, absolutely. I think we underestimate how much the United States needs us. If we want to understand how much the United States needs South Africa, look how long it took it to oppose apartheid. We have our own strategic interests and our own strategic value, and we should absolutely stand up, not only for ourselves, but for whoever else will fall victim to this kind of bullish behavior.
All right. We need to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to bring in Yvette Raphael to talk about the consequences, the real-world consequences of putting a pause on aid here in South Africa. How does it affect those who are trying to fight HIV and AIDS on a daily basis here in South Africa? More next. Welcome back. You're watching It's Topical. The U.S. executive order against South Africa causing a whole lot of debate here in South Africa and on the continent as well. My guests are weighing in terms of what sort of consequences does this have, in practical terms. Let's go to Yvette Raphael. With regards to pulling funding, we know that 17% of the funding in terms of South Africa's program to fight HIV and AIDS comes from PEPFAR. The rest comes from this country. But talk to us about the on-the-ground issues or consequences. When you heard that this was happening, what was the activity on the ground? If you can unmute Yvette.
Thank you so much. And just to say, on the 20th, Donald Trump froze aid across the world, and not only in South Africa. We received stop work orders pending a 90-day investigation, and many organizations who are focusing on HIV prevention, HIV treatment, had to close doors for people living with HIV, not knowing where to go and get their treatment. What we also risk to lose very important research that is happening in South Africa that had to stop because of these stop work orders. People living with HIV and South Africans are confused. Where are they going to get their treatments? Unlike the US, we don't discriminate against trans people. We don't discriminate against the LGBTI community. So some of these stop orders put us in a real frenzy across the world, and not only South Africa. But I must say, when these stop orders happened, and the aid was stopped by the U.S. By Donald Trump, a lot of things happened. On X, a lot of stigma started coming out, a lot of people speaking up and almost being happy and glad that the aid stopped because of corruption whatsoever. And all of that is misinformation. US aid PEPFAR dollars in South Africa help a lot of people. I do understand South Africa fits the bill for majority of our treatment, but the aid assisted in so many of the gaps that we have.
Give us some example, Yvette, so people can understand.
So the public health sector is where everyone goes to get their HIV medication, treatment, as well as prevention. However, to stop that gap, we have a lot of organizations who go into the communities where the communities cannot reach their clinics, where there are no clinics. These mobile clinics go and assist. They do HIV prevention for treatment, as well as they do HIV testing. So in these communities, these services have stopped, and they had to, people have to go to our government clinics. But I want to talk about the only 17%. The only 17% translate in billions, which we don't have as a country. I know our Minister Aaron Motsoaledi is always excited to mention that, but these services were created because there was a gap. We'd like for him to immediately start working with us for us to build a space, a stopgap, until we find real long-term solutions for what is happening. Also, just to say, the LGBTQI community in our country will not be discriminated against. The stigma that is happening on X, where all of this is happening, I think America's been run from X, and nobody is talking about it. Even the misinformation that led to the recent executive order is because of the misinformation and the excitement of some people when the aid was cut. And this has real life implications. If people living with HIV don't get their medication, don't get their treatment, we will see a rise in new infection of HIV, and people are going to die. And I hope those who are celebrating are happy now, because the misinformation has reached the correct ears, apparently. And all of this is because white South Africans feel that they are not part of our country.
Kali Kriel, in part of your statement, you said that Flip Buys, chairperson of the Solidarity Movement, of which AfriForum is a part of, is going to reach out to President Ramaphosa and will also visit the US soon in an attempt to find solutions in this regard that will benefit everyone. You heard what Yvette has said. Do you regret the way things have turned out, given the fact that this aid is being pulled?
Yes, well, it's terrible what we're hearing from Yvette, and I think that is exactly the reason why our message has always been, please do not punish the normal people of South Africa. It is not the politicians that are being punished. It is the people that needs that
but
HIV
medication. What is the normal people, Kali? What is the normal people? The normal people of South Africa is the ones that voted for the ANC, that you thought the executive order is going to miraculously just be for the president and for Julius Malema. However, we are the people that voted for the... No, unfortunately, you're getting way too much time, and it's caused way too much problem.
He asked me...
Let's hear from Kali. Kali, you can complete your thoughts. Yvette, let's hear...
Yeah, you see, that is exactly the point. Yvette, if she listens, we have, in fact, in the US, asked that this kind of assistance should not be stopped. And Yvette can be angry now. She can try and shout me dead. But the fact is, it is the government. And by the way, the majority of people didn't vote for the ANC. You're incorrect there. But it is the government that alienated the US. Now we have to have cool heads and say, what can be done now? How can we solve this to make sure that the HIV assistance goes ahead, to make sure that we are part of AGOA, and then we must say what went wrong. And that is why we are going to engage with the presidency to say what can be done to solve this, and then go to the US to try and solve that. And that has been our role all the time.
Crispin, let me just bring in Crispin on that part, Kali. The AfriForum going to the US to try and sort out this issue. Is government in support of the help, of the assistance of AfriForum in order to sort this out?
Look, we don't think that it's best for non-state actors to do what has been done previously, and partly this is why we are where we are now. I mean, you can see the reaction from Yvette. People know the truth. But we would want to say that as South Africans, let's rather work together to get us out of this quagmire. And I think our government is a listening government. Our government is an open government where there are opportunities to engage people like Kali. We've done so before, and we will continue to do so, so that we are at Edom about what matters to South Africans and what's our national interest, and how do we ensure that we all act in accordance with those national interests.
Right. We need to take a quick break. We're asking a very simple question with regard to your reaction to the executive order that was signed by President Donald Trump against South Africa. Let us know your thoughts at SABC News_TV. Quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear from our digital audience. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching It's Topical. We're talking about the executive order signed by President Donald Trump, U.S. President Donald Trump, against South Africa. It deals with an array of issues. Let's get our digital audience take with regards to this. Let's hear from Tina Bella. Tina, your take, your response, your reaction to this executive order. Tina, if you can. There we go.
Yes, I've done. Thank you so much, Blaine, and good evening to all the studio audience, the people that are there. Kali, good evening, and good evening to the people outside, your listeners. Okay, you know what? My first reaction was when I heard this. You're going to laugh at me now, but I put my fist in the air and I said, yes. There's a reason, a very big reason for it, because for the first time, it's the best thing that could have happened to South Africa in a very, very long time, because the only negative about this is that President Ramaphosa can go now and say, no, okay, but now he's turning against America completely. But I think Mr. Trump had the insight to do this, not only because that he's crossed with us or whatever the case may be, but because he sees that we cannot work together. South Africans has never been able to work together. Now, for the first time, we have the opportunity to take hands in 30 years or 40 years or 50 years for that matter.
So just so I understand you, when you put your fist up in the air and said yes, was that for the pulling of aid or for the opportunity to resettle in America? Or both?
No. Definitely not America. South Africa is my country. Sorry, Yvette, but that is the truth. And I know that you said what South Africans feel they are not part of our country. That's not true. I have never, ever been feeling more part of this country than right now after Donald Trump said he's pulling the aid. I know it is detrimental to people like Yvonne with the AIDS and everything. And I'm a huge problem with a lot of things in the country.
Hold on, Yvette. Hold on, Yvette.
Thank you. But the thing is, as a country, white, black,
right,
whoever's living in this country, we've never been able to stand together.
Okay.
Never.
Yvette, I'm going to come back to you. In a short while. Let me just get a few more comments from the digital audience, and I'll bring you in. Jeremiah, let's hear from you. Go on, Jeremiah. All right. It seems that we're having an issue with Jeremiah. Isaac.
Good evening, Brain, and good evening to the listeners and viewers at home. So basically my reaction to this executive order and the reaction from South Africa and the international world from it basically is that, like, there's a lot of misinformation and disingenuous, characters that are in South Africa that push this information that basically in South Africa, the Afrikaner white minority is under persecution. They're having their private property taken from this act. So basically that's very untrue, because right now in South Africa there is no Afrikaner farmer that has had their farm taken. Right now at the time of saying this, there is no Afrikaner basically that's being genocided for basically being Afrikaner. Like AfriForum might argue to disagree, but basically South Africa is a country that has a past. Everyone is aware of the past. And even right now in the situation, there are laws that need to be changed, because right now I have a situation, even at the Nelson Mandela University, was suspended without a hearing, and then now the matter is still like, basically they say I can't come back to the university, and the matter involves racism. So basically there's still an element in South Africa whereby the laws need to be pushed, such as this Expropriation Act, to redress the South Africa. And basically whether the world, international world says this or this, it doesn't matter. South Africa needs to be firm and stand strong on redressing its past.
All right, point taken. Masihle?
Yes, I just have two questions. One for the DECO spokesperson, which is, are there measures in place for the risk of diplomatic fallouts, mitigating measures essentially? And then I also have one for Mr. Kali Kriel, which is, what solution is there to correcting the past of the wrong, which is the 1913 Natives Land Act, 1936 Natives Trust and Land Act, and 1950s Group Areas Act?
All right, thank you very much. Let's hear from Yvette before I go to Kali as well as Crispin. Yvette?
Thank you so much. And I think Tina, when she had her hand up and have been celebrating that finally we'll be working together, is just showing it's the racist white South Africans that are not working together, that think the world is at standstill because they are not part of it. We are working together. We're working with many, many white people in South Africa who are part of the transformation and who is willing to work with us. The racists are only waking up now because they think we are being punished by the US by taking away aid. And it's HIV, not AIDS, Tina. If you were part of the discourse, if you are part of the things that we're doing, you would know that it's HIV and not AIDS. There's hardly any cases of AIDS in this country. So get together, get on the program, start working with those who are working. Sihamba nalababa hambayo. Not those who are sitting in their corners and crying about, we are not working together. Working together for what? No land was taken. The aid is gone because of, and you celebrated, white Afrikaners celebrated that the aid is gone, and that is the hurtful thing, including Elon Musk.
Yvette, thank you. Kali, let me bring you in with regards to Masihle's question about, look, there's historical context here, even with regard to the Expropriation Act. How do you right the wrongs of the past?
Yes, most definitely. We've been in support of restitution. There is restitution legislation, and there is a firm process for that to be done. But it failed. Why? Not because there was something wrong with the process, but we've seen corruption, political cadres giving land to their connections or their family, people buying farms and selling it again for exorbitant prices, a lack of administrative ability. Government bought more than 4,000 farms, but then they did not give the farms title deeds to the farmers. And if you don't get your title deed, you are set up for failure because you cannot get a loan, then you cannot provide input costs, and then you're going to fail. And then according to government themselves, 90% of these projects fail. So now this fails, government should take responsibility. And because they want to evade that, now they say, no, we're going to bring in this next act that will expropriate without compensation. And the terrible thing about this, it will alienate investment and assistance, what we are seeing now. And exactly the people that we've just heard, that Mashele wants to actually help, are going to be hit the hardest, like in Zimbabwe. So let's fix this country. We're not tone deaf to the problem. But expropriation without compensation is going to have problems.
Let me bring in Crispin. Tone deaf. Tone is important, right? Perception is important, seemingly, especially with Donald Trump at the helm. How does South Africa approach this in a tactful way that doesn't escalate tensions?
Yeah, and I think that's a good question. It's also linked to Marcele's question. We really believe that a diplomatic engagement will have to be the best way to go about this. And we stand ready to engage our U.S. interlocutors at any point. And we have our ambassador there, Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool, who is really working hard to engage a number of role players. Kali earlier asked me for proof of what AfriForum had said in the U.S. And this is an extract from the Washington Post. It says, Tucker Carlson, those South African white rights activists aren't telling you the whole truth. And then it says last month, this is a 2019 article, Kali. Last month, South Africa's white rights activists toured the United States on a media and lobbying campaign. Members of this group, which they call AfriForum, aim at drawing attention to what they allege has been a campaign of violence against white farmers ignored by the government for racial reasons. They met with staff and Congress members, and they were interviewed by conservative media outlets such as Fox News. So there's a direct link with the latest executive action. Because President Trump says horrible things.
Just hold on, Kali. Let Crispin finish his point.
President Trump says horrible things are being done to a certain class of people. And then what do we see later? His executive order is exclusively dealing with the Afrikaners and granting them refugee status. So there's a direct link with their campaign, what has been reported in media in the USA, and what has now resulted in this executive order.
Patrick, how do we bring down the temperature at this stage?
I mean, my brother Crispin will be based to answer that. But I think now we have to engage in diplomatic relations. You know, he has said it that the government is ready to engage. The question here is the American government ready to engage with South Africa to bring down the temperature? You know, I think, to be honest, Pretoria has always been willing to engage any partners, you know, that they have differences with. You know, given the history of the country, given the foreign policy of the country, and at this point, I just think that you know, it will be engagements that need to take place. But I don't think that the Trump administration is ready to engage if you have a Secretary of State that goes on Twitter, does not engage his counterparts, goes on Twitter and says he's not going to attend the G20 summit.
Christopher, we have a government of national unity. Many within the government of national unity have different points and opinions about this matter. How important is it to have one consistent message that South Africa will put forward as a government in order to sort out this issue?
Well, I think it's important to get consensus in government. Apologies for that. But I think we must recognize that our constitution is very clear on this. There must be a redressing of past unjust practices that came out of colonialism and apartheid, that we must redress it using the constitution, and the Expropriation Act does exactly that. So we are hemmed within that framework by our constitution. And I just wanted to pick up on something, if I may, just to agree with Yvette, that at the heart of this is the inability of white people to recognize their privilege, to recognize their responsibility for past wrongs. And this is not a South African problem. We have to be very wary about limiting this to a South African. If you read the executive order, it's about a global question, right? And you can draw a straight line between Donald Trump saying 5 million Gazans must lose their property and 5 million white people must keep their property forever. And until we understand white supremacy in its global dimensions, there will always be useful idiots that will spark debate. But until we address the structure of it, we're still going to come back in a few months arguing about the same things. And we have to address it at that level. We have to think about this in the context of the rise of white supremacy and the rise of this type of reactionary, unlawful action.
Jeremiah, let's get your take. We didn't hear from you earlier on.
Okay, thank you, Blaine. Good evening to all speakers there in studio. We like to condemn this allegation by AfriForum and also Donald Trump in terms of this misinformation of this act. But this legislation is not the problem, but we have two main problem that it caused the problem of diplomacy between South Africa and USA. Number one, it's a BRICS, where we find out the main country that they are in BRICS, mainly Russia, China, also and Iran in BRICS and plus. So that the initiative that they will create the currency for BRICS country to trading on BRICS country, around BRICS country. Right. And the issue number two is the IECC, the court that the international court that we approach in terms of our standing with Palestine on the genocide that committed by Israel and warrant arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu and former minister of Israel, Defense Force. So our standing on that for international court is the main cause, is cause the diplomacy. So it's the time now for us African to become together, ensuring that we grow our economy and ending the useless war as African. Because depending on the Western powers, it will just face these issues that we are facing currently. It's now for African to come together, see how can we trade together as African. Because depending on the Western power, it's a problem.
Right.
And I like to concur with Yvette on terms of the PIFA funding. In 2024, American was fund this program with is 453 million US dollars on that program. Thank you, Blaine.
Thank you so much. We're fast running out of time. Crispin, I just need to, from government's point of view, what's the next step? Is there going to be a meeting with the U.S. administration, Donald Trump's administration? Does that extend to one Elon Musk? What's the approach from South Africa?
By the way, it seems as though Elon Musk is a government official because he's in charge of Doge. So he's someone of immense influence, directly responsible for cutting this aid. I think one of those initiatives was to ensure that there's no wastages. So he is a government official for intents and purposes. We will be engaging all our capitals of strategic importance in the world. You would have heard President Ramaphosa in the SONA announcing that he will be sending a delegation to various capitals of the world. And that definitely would include Washington.
All right. Thank you very much indeed to all my guests, Kali Kriel, also to Christopher Givers. Thank you so much to Patrick, Crispin. Appreciate your time. Digital audience, Yvette Raphael, fiery as ever. Your point taken. Thank you very much indeed for your time. All right. Before we go, here's my take. Preventative diplomacy. It refers to the diplomatic action taken to prevent disputes from escalating into conflicts. Question. Should South Africa take a hard stance on this rather than reacting to events? As a citizen of this country, do you value South Africa's relationship with the United States? Depends on who you ask, right? And the answer, I guess, will depend on what you see and how you interpret it. The US is seen as a valued trading, investment, and development partner. How does the recent events shape your perception of the United States and the need for South Africa to continue to pursue a strategic relationship? For me, the answer would lie along the lines of as long as it's mutually respectful relationship based on facts and aligns with South Africa's national priorities. And that's my take. If you miss anything on this program, be sure to watch this episode of It's Topical on SABC Plus and YouTube. Trends Travel up next if you're watching a repeat of this program. Then as always, the news continues. Until next week, my brothers and sisters, take care. Bye-bye.